welcome to video 2 of At Lance's Point. This time we're going to go over activating units, activating formations, and movement. So, first of all, activation. You activate a commander. As you can see, there's one little dude here. So just about see him at the back there. Another guy here. Actually, I can pull these forwards a bit for you. So, you start off by activating the commander himself. His formation then activates. Here we have 2 units of Celts in an inflexible formation. He will have to activate, he can do 2 things. He can activate the whole formation to move forwards, or move in general, or he can activate individual units to fight in a melee. So if there is an enemy just down here at the bottom of the picture, he can activate this unit here to charge in without wrecking all the other units in the process. To them, they then fight their combat and do everything else that they have to do. Then we come back to his other unit, and then they move and do whatever it is they have to do. Lastly, he is then moved up to join his unit or go somewhere else. You can't activate a unit or even a base from another formation and then come back to the previous formation. You have to do all the activations in turn with one formation and in turn with each unit within that formation. The difference, or not the difference, but the flexibility comes when you have units like skirmishers. He says trying to find some skirmishers. So I'm going to use these Roman ones here briefly. These skirmishers are part of this formation. They come forwards and they move first of all, and then missile attack these guys down here. Another option they'd have probably in the next turn would be to shoot first and then move away afterwards, potentially leaving a route for these guys to get through. That brings us slightly on to another point, which is the bounce move that skirmishers have. So these guys could move into this position here. They can shoot at these auxilia down here, and then the warband, that's part of the same formation, can then charge through them, which will bounce them to the rear of their formation. So, in recap, you have to do everything with a formation first, and you have to do each unit, activate each unit completely within that formation before moving on to the next unit. Some cards apply to an entire unit movement. For instance, there's some advanced cards which allow you to move quicker. Regardless of moving one unit and completing all their actions first, that advanced card would apply to all the units in the formation equally. So you aren't sort of like caught out by the fact you have to do all the activations from one unit, and therefore you lose the effects of the card later on. Alright, that brings us on to movement. Let's have a quick grab here. The movement rates, don't know how visible that's going to be on camera. This is a very rough video, guys. All of this is going to be up on our website. The rules are free on the website, or will be free on the website very soon. With the Kickstarter, we will be launching the main rules, which have examples and all sorts of other stuff. But this is going to be the full rules as well. So we're not selling the rules to make money. We're trying to get the rules out there to get people interested in the game and allow everyone to play it. So, movement. For the most part, units aren't hugely flexible on the table. So, get rid of the skirmishers. Using this warband as an example, this warband moves 6 inches. They are fast infantry, so they get an extra 2 inches of movement, so they go 8 inches, which is great. It means they can move an awfully long way on the table, which for a Roman player, or even another Celtic player, it can be difficult controlling what warbands do, or what your enemy's warbands do anyway. To wheel this entire formation is kind of problematic. Their base movement is reduced to 4 inches, and with their +2 movement for being fast, it goes to 6 inches. And you would measure, can you see on the camera? Do it from this side. You would measure forwards as such, the furthest unit, as you do in all other war games, and move the rest of them up. So, even with a fast unit or formation, wheeling is slow and laborious. With the cavalry over here, potentially this smaller formation of fast light cavalry, which can move 12 normally, because they're fast, they get to go an extra 2 inches, which is 14. When they wheel, they are not affected by the movement, so they could, in effect, come all the way down to here and do a full 90-degree swing on their movement. But that's maintaining the formation the whole way through. A more likely move, but potentially with risk involved, is to unform units. An unformed unit moves at its basic speed, with any other modifiers obviously. So for instance, the warband here, of 2 groups or 2 units of 6 paces. Steadily wrecking the bases, well done. We can say, okay, this unit here is going to unform, which is used with a marker to show that they're unformed, and they can move 6 inches or 8 inches with their +2 in absolutely any direction they want, as long as it doesn't take them through another formed unit. So they can move anywhere to that side of them, including straight forwards. Unforming quite often is used to get through terrain features. So if you have to get through a stream that will disorder you, that's always advisable. So potentially both units unform to move through streams and so on. They would unform to move across linear obstacles such as a wall or a ditch or a gully, that sort of thing. The other one, as just mentioned just now, is disorder, which we use with 2 markers. Disorder halves your movement. It gives you a negative in melee when you attack, and it gives you a negative to your armour when you're attacked. You don't want to become disordered. If you cross a river, regardless of what you do to get across it, a river will disorder your unit. Unless you cross by a bridge, obviously. Melee will quite often disorder units if certain cards are played. Missile units, archers and skirmishers, they can play a card called Disordered by Missiles. So if they cause casualties to any of your bases, they can play the card and it disorders the unit. It's an unpleasant effect. You can't have cards played on you while you're disordered. You don't count as a link in a inflexible formation. It's painful being disordered. There are cards in most of the decks for most of the types of unit that allow you to instantly reform the unit. The warband forces don't have that, they would have to dice for it. They do have a card in here. He says, hoping he can find it quickly. Should be at the top somewhere. Nope, sorry. Oh, I can't find it now. It's okay, there it is. Called Tribal, which ignores the effect of disorder and being unformed for a turn. So once that's on them, they ignore this disordered effect, they move normally, they have cards put in them normally, and so on. But at the start of your next turn, you take the card off, and they go back to being disordered again. They're entertaining to use. If you aren't in contact, if you aren't in melee contact with the enemy, you can make a dice roll. It's always a 2+ test. As long as you pass the test, they become reordered. If you roll a 1, they take a morale point, and they remain disordered. Moving quickly onto morale, I'm just glossing over it very, very quickly. You have to roll above the number of morale points you have to not rout, should we say. So in the following turn, if they want to reform again, now because they have a morale point, if they roll 2+ as they rolled, is what's required to reform. Ideal. But if they roll a 1, because they have a 1-point morale point on them now, they would fail that and they would rout and be removed from the table. What else is there in movement? Disorder, infiltration. So let's get some more Romans on the table for this one, as I am more likely to use it than anyone else. So in the previous video, I described archers supporting to the rear of a Roman formation. I need 2 more archer bases, which I seem to have buried somewhere. There we go. Push them on the camera. So, actually we'll start that way around. There we go. Here, as stated earlier, these guys can shoot at close range, these guys can shoot at long. So as the enemy are closing towards you, at long range both ranks can volley fire, and then as the enemy get closer, only the front rank, and then if you have time, if you have a turn, you can infiltrate up to 2 bases through up to 2 other bases and place them behind them as a movement. When missile troops move, they can't shoot. If these want to shoot, they can't move either, they have to remain stationary. So infiltration is a neat way of moving your missile troops from the front of a unit to the rear of a unit, but it can cause an issue. There are cards with mass missile troops that allow you to shoot and then move, which is kind of handy. It's meant for this situation. There are other cards that will allow you to move, potentially, and then shoot as well. So, going to the cards very quickly. The rules are quite strict and quite conforming. The cards are there to break those rules, give more flexibility, and add a lot more flavour. So with the infiltration rules in particular, that is a thing. It comes across a lot when we play Wars of the Roses. We don't do a lot of this infiltration stuff when we're doing Ancients, just because of how we fight the games. But when we do Wars of the Roses and more of the medieval stuff, there's a lot more infiltration of troops happening. So anyway, that's the basics of movement and activation. Hope that one is a good video. It's a bit longer again, it's up to 14 minutes now. I hope it isn't too boring. As said before, like, subscribe and hit that bell button, guys, and I'll follow this up with more videos soon. Thank you. Goodbye.